Alberta Primetime with Michael Higgins.
Welcome to Alberta Primetime. Ahead tonight, our politics panel on building pushback to AI data centers in our province. But first, referendum pressure on the Premier.
She promised that our question would be on the ballot if we had the requisite number of signatures. Now we have the requisite number of signatures, and she's still campaigning against us having our question on the ballot.
Reaction to Elections Alberta recently signaling the pro-separation petition submitted by Stay Free Alberta cleared the hurdle for the number of signatures needed to be verified successful. However, the referendum question Separatists want remains in legal limbo in the courts. Joining us now to discuss that and more, Peter Guthrie, leader of the Progressive Tory Party of Alberta. Mr. Guthrie, good to see you, sir. Welcome back.
Nice to see you too.
All right, well, let's start right there on the status of the Separatist petition. What do you feel should ultimately come of their question, given the petition has been verified as successful?
I think ultimately they passed the date, just as the coal petition had. That said, I think the vast majority of Albertans want to remain in Canada. It doesn't mean that we don't have issues with Ottawa. I mean, they exist, and I share in those. And Alberta does deserve to have fair treatment. That said, I think they should be happy with the referendum questions that are set up as they are, because they are built in order to continue the constitutional battle with Ottawa. These are not built to resolve anything. The UCP, they know full well that going to the ballot with referendum questions that are based upon, let's say, leaving the CPP or getting rid of the RCMP, they know that those are not winners. So in order to keep the separation dream alive, they're switching gears. And so they're now able to look at things such as immigration, justice, voting, and continue that battle on federal, provincial jurisdiction. That's what this is all about. And my fear is here that this isn't going to end on October 19th, that if the UCP get a mandate, then they're just going to continue that battle, and we're going to end up right back where we are today, but this time having a real referendum on separation. And, it's quite sad, because we're not dealing with the issues that Albertans, need addressing, like affordability, healthcare, education, dealing with the massive debts the UCP are ringing up.
If the outcome of the petition goes the other way, how do you feel the Smith government should own that outcome of the referendum? What should that look like?
How do you mean?
Well, if it is that their questions are not successful, any of the 10.
Well, then they're going to need to drop it for sure. That said, the Premier has already indicated that they intend on moving forward. At least she's sort of alluded to that fact.
Okay, let's shift focus to your efforts, your efforts to build Team Tory. How steep a hill are you having to climb to generate traction for the party? How do you land on the radar as a credible alternative?
Yeah, we're pretty happy with the progress that we've been seeing. People are reaching out, and they're very excited. The feedback that we're getting from people all across the province is suggesting that they're looking for a new political home. And, we're there to offer that practical, sensible, evidence-based decision-making, government that is based in and foundationally on good government. And as far as operationally, we're doing well. We started this year with 0 constituency associations. We now have 30 up and running. We're getting interest from volunteers, from members, from candidates. We just opened our first nomination contest last week in Camrose, and we're gearing up for the Calgary Shaw by-election. So yeah, we're happy with the momentum that we're building here.
Okay, on Calgary Shaw, where do you stand on fielding a candidate? Do you have someone in mind already?
We do, and I think that we will be looking to open up that nomination contest in the next week or two.
And you anticipate a by-election will be held?
I believe so. There's one that I think by elections law has to be held by the end of November. So we are expecting that that'll be called. I don't think the Premier has indicated that she's going to call it and have it at the same day as the referendum. That would make the most sense. The UCP are spending somewhere in the order of $120 to $150 million on the referendum. So you would think when you're bringing people together that you would hold the by-election on the same night. But I think all indications are that it'll be sometime after that.
Okay. Prior to parting ways with the governing UCP, you served as energy minister. The proposed West Coast pipeline now under review by the Major Projects Office. Where do you feel Alberta stands in substantially taking this forward, shouldering a lot of the weight?
Yeah. You know, from a Tory party perspective, we absolutely support responsible resource development and getting our resources to world markets. But I mean, before taxpayers go writing checks for tens of billions of dollars, we really should be asking, why private companies are not investing. And like, you look at it right now, we are currently at our export capacity. We have another, say, 850,000 barrels that are already approved. So the government here now is talking about another 2.8 million barrels on top of that. So before another pipeline makes sense, billions of dollars are going to have to be invested by the private sector to fill those lines. And so if that investment isn't happening, we need to be looking at the root problem instead of asking taxpayers to flip the bill for what looks like a political stunt to save the hides of the UCP.
All right, Mr. Guthrie, we'll have to leave it there for time. As always, appreciate your time. Thank you kindly.
Thanks, Michael.
Peter Guthrie, MLA for Airdrie Cochrane, leader as well of the Progressive Tory Party of Alberta. From data center protests to Corb Lund seeking a court challenge over his petition rejection, and the state of play for the Progressive Tory Party. Time now for tonight's politics panel. And joining us this evening, former MLA and Cabinet Minister Martin McQuaig-Boyd, and Don Hill, co-founder of the blog Beyond Polarity and a longtime broadcast journalist in Alberta. Good evening to you both. And let's begin with building pushback to announcements of AI data centers in our province, including Meta's plan to build in the industrial heartland north of Edmonton.
They've been sort of completely erased, with the Premier saying that nobody really lives there, it's in a remote area. Well, people do live here. This is going to disrupt people's lives.
It's just getting a message out about why these things are really being built. They're not being built to serve people. They're being built to serve someone's profit and lining pockets of billionaires.
Protesters gathered over the weekend in front of the Sturgeon County Centre, many expressing worry about the amount of water and electricity data centers can draw and what that would mean for their own usage and bills. The Premier has said the province's grid operator will use surplus energy to power the $13 billion data centre until a natural gas power plant is up and running, and that will be in 2030 anticipated. Mark, having been in government previously, what strikes you about building pushback in Alberta to the arrival of data center deals? How much of a signal is being sent here?
I think there's a growing signal from people being sent as to the mistrust of data centers, and what the true costs are going to be. With Alberta paying some of the highest prices already of electricity, I think there's a fear that we're going to be paying more. And as the one protester said, is it going to benefit people, or is it just a corporate benefit that the government is bolstering? So I think there's a lot of unknowns that people just want answers to.
Don, how should these protests land on the radar of Daniel Smith and the UCP? How much pause for thought should this give the government?
Well, you have to pay attention to what people are saying in the communities that are going to be affected by data centers. But what I'd like to turn the clock back a bit on is the hysteria that is being, it's going to be using so much water, it's going to be doing this, that, and the other thing. Look at folks, look around the golf courses all around the province that we built over the last 15, 20 years. Those things use a ton of water. The data centers do, yes, they use a lot of water, about like a golf course, last time I checked. I think the most thing that people would want to be most concerned about is the racket that these things generate, and they do. They make a lot of noise. But if anyone lives close to a wind farm in southern Alberta, notably around Pincher Creek area, you'll be familiar with that particular sound, the kind of whoop, whoop, whoop. But this is just persistent. Now, the third thing, and perhaps most significant, I actually have a recording of a data center in terms of its sound. And if you match it against what's going on, let's just say if you're around on the Anthony Henday on any given afternoon, it's kind of like the same. It gets masked. So what I would like to see the protesters do is be a bit honest about a few things, about what are we indeed talking about here? Are we talking about racket? Are we talking about pollution? Are we talking about this, that, and the other thing? Or are we talking about a lot of activist stuff? And this is the latest thing that they can get all excited about.
Marg, as a former energy minister, what are you watching for in terms of, and you touched on it a bit earlier, but what are you watching for in terms of impact with the Mata AI data center using surplus electricity before the new natural gas-fired plant powers up? Where should that land on the radar of Albertans?
Yeah, I had questions when I heard that because, to my knowledge, we don't have a ton of excess electricity in Alberta. And that has shown to be true in the cold times in the winters when we've been told to conserve. So I imagine there are some things coming on side right now, but that would be a point of concern for me is, do we actually have a lot of excess electricity? And I think the other one that I've heard from a number of people is, are we going to have our prices affected because of it? They say not, but again, it remains to be seen.
All right. Up next, organizers of the Water, Not Coal petition have filed for a judicial review challenging the decision by Elections Alberta to deem it unsuccessful.
We've had a really close look at it and feel like it was procedurally unfair and unreasonable. And basically what they did, I don't think Elections Alberta is in on it with the UCP or anything, but and I don't think they're incompetent as a group. But in this case, I think they were unfair.
About 35,000 of the more than 200,000 signatures collected were rejected, putting the petition below the 178,000 threshold. Lund believes Elections Alberta used more strict standards than the law requires. In response, Elections Alberta issuing a statement saying it has a clear and rigorous process and follows the requirements set out in the Citizen Initiative Act. Don Worth trying to fight this in the courts. Where do you land on Corb Lund seeking a judicial review?
Well, first off, let me say I really, really like Corb Lund. I really do. I think he's a fantastic musician. His tunes really reflect, like in an Ian Tyson kind of way, about who we are in this province. But this particular petition has some problems in the real politic of the world we live in right now. Now, this is about coal mining. It's about metallurgical coal in this particular instance, and metallurgical coal, which is used for steel making, in the real politic of the world that we have now, a world that seems to be teetering into a wartime setting. We're going to need these kinds of resources just in case we need to make a lot of steel quickly. Now, metallurgical coal is rare, relatively rare in the world. What a lot of folks, especially in urban communities, believe is that they're coal mining to burn in perhaps plants to generate electricity. That's not what we're talking about here. Now, I'm not saying that Mr. Corb Lund is correct or incorrect. I'm just saying a lot of things have changed, and this is dynamic. And so maybe we're talking about the veracity or the truthfulness of this particular petition. I have no doubt that these people have got what they need to get, but I'm saying the conditions have changed. That doesn't answer the question. It asks another question, and I think that's the one we're going to have answered pretty quickly.
Marg Lund's application to be heard at some point over the next couple of weeks. How feasible is it to suggest Elections Alberta decision, the one that was made, be set aside and this petition either be declared successful or for it to be considered again?
Well, I think there's a lot of questions surrounding the procedure, as Corb mentioned. There were some questions about, for example, Elections Alberta, when they called, did not have it did not come up as Elections Alberta, which was promised to them. So people didn't answer their phones. And so that was taken as, not a valid phone number or whatever. And so I think there's some things like that that have come up that begs the question, did they do it in the right way? So I think it bears, there were scrutineers at it who had questions as well. So I think it bears going to the court and seeing if the petition was done in the correct manner as was promised to Corb and the Water Not Coal folks.
Okay, and if that happens, then should it go back to the counting stage if they get a green light from the courts with this application for judicial review?
I believe it should, given the results.
Don?
Sorry, John.
Well,
sorry, Don.
Yeah, well, no, Mark. You see, this is tricky. Like, I agree with everything in terms of the minutia of how the law works. All I'm just referring to over and over again is that we're in a dynamic situation. Even a year ago, I mean, people would probably not only agree with Corb and maybe cause Elections Alberta to sort of take a look at how they do business. But this is changing so fast that let me just go back a step here. Exshaw, which has got a big cement plants there, at one time was in Banff National Park until it wasn't. And what do they do in Exshaw? What's limestone? What does limestone do? Well, it makes the stuff that goes boom, dynamite, among other things. I'll leave it at that. You'll see where I'm going with this.
All right. We do have to take a bit of a break. When we come back, though, the road forward, facing Peter Guthrie and his new party. More from our politics panel in a moment. Welcome back. We heard from Peter Guthrie off the top this evening on efforts to drive his new progressive Tory Party of Alberta forward. Marg, he's been traveling the province. He's selling this as Alberta's only true conservative option. What's it going to take to generate any form of momentum, land on the radar of Alberta voters as a credible alternative?
Well, I think he's certainly getting a lot of press and he's out there and being seen, and that, I think, is generating some momentum. As he mentioned, he's got, 30 constituency associations, which is quite a few for the time he's been working at it. And I think if they're able to get a candidate in Calgary Shaw, that's going to put them on the map a little bit more in the next while. But he's certainly putting in the work and doing what he needs to do.
Don, putting in that work, with the referendum approaching, how opportune a time is this for Guthrie to get out there, generate that traction?
Well, let me just say straight up, I'm very pleased to hear what Mr. Guthrie is saying, to appeal to progressive conservatives from the Lougheed era that we're alive, we're still here, and we want your attention. So I think he has tremendous opportunity to, especially since the popularity of Mr. Nenshi continues to tank. Let's call it for what it is, folks. Yes, there's the Edmonton bubble, and there will be people who say, yes, go, Naheed, go. But there's other people saying, Mr. Nenshi, maybe you do need to go. Now, this is where Mr. Guthrie, Peter Guthrie, can actually come up right up the middle and take in that whole bunch of folks, especially before the referendum, who don't like either option at this point. So I think he's got a good opportunity to go where Peter Lougheed once went, from nowhere to somewhere in 1971.
Mark, to pick up on your earlier point, how important would it be to run a candidate in the anticipated Calgary Shaw by-election?
Oh, I think it's super important that they get a candidate to run, and a good quality candidate, to show that they are serious and they do mean business, as a party. And, I think that's going to define them for their future going into, the next election for sure.
Don, to find that path up the middle, and given what Guthrie is saying at this point, where do you see him generating a policy edge over the direction of the UCP? What would he need to latch on to policy-wise?
I think he needs to speak the language of the current generation that lives here and the people who are coming to our province. Remember, we have an in-migration from right across the country. And that provides an opportunity for people who don't know what's been happening here in the last 10 to 15 years and speak very clearly and plainly about what Alberta will look like a year, 2 years, or 5 years out from now. And he is very articulate. I was very impressed with just your few moments that you had with him today. The other thing I really like about Peter Guthrie, he's a principled man. There's one other person, and truth to tell, my colleague, Donna Kennedy-Glantz, did exactly the same thing. She was supposedly a dead politician walking. Now she's a National Post columnist and, of course, a regular here on Alberta Primetime. Principled people who are progressive and conservatives now have a shot at actually getting something done in this province after 5, 10 years of this, that, and the other thing. So, yes, I think there's a good appeal right now, especially in these uncertain, dynamic times. And what I like about Peter Guthrie is he's also appealing to people's emotions and their intelligence, because this will be an emotional debate coming up this fall.
Mark, on that point of policy, where do you see this new party needing to go in terms of showing direction to Albertans as a viable alternative?
I think what he's doing is exactly what Don described. He's painting a future that makes some sense, is value-centered, considers people, and I think that's been lost, certainly with the current government in power, forgetting that they're representing the people, and I think Peter does exude that. And I would agree with Don, he's a very value-centered, honest politician, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Don, you brought up the opposition a short while ago. What do you think the NDP should be watching for from this new party? How worried should it be by Peter Guthrie, maybe generating some momentum?
Well, Mark, thanks very much for agreeing with me. This is a first. No, I'm just kidding. But what I wanted to say was Mr. Guthrie seems to express a place where everybody can agree, as opposed to the politics of opposition. Now, Mr. Nenshi has done a great job of dividing people again. Thanks a lot, Mr. Nenshi. We don't need that right now. What we do need are more Peter Guthrie-like principled politicians who are in there for a future Alberta that we can all see ourselves a part of. So, Mr. Guthrie, please appeal to those kinds of candidates, because let's face it, Mark, I think you might be able to agree with me again on this one, not that we disagree. We have a problem where a lot of people who should be in politics, who should be in office, aren't, because of the kind of divisional politics that are you on the red team, the blue team, the green team, the purple team, or whatever team you're on right now. We just need the best people right now to get through a very challenging time ahead of us, folks. So if you know somebody that should be in office, please encourage them. Please support them. We're going to need them.
Last word to you, Mark. Coming from the Orange team, how worried should Naheed Nenshi be here?
I think he should be vigilant as to what's going on, but he has to also do his plan and continue to build the Orange team. But I do like the fact there's going to be a bit of variety. I don't like the two-party system that we have currently, so I'm happy to see a choice. And I know anecdotally there are friends of mine in the Conservatives and the NDP who are looking at Peter Guthrie as potentially a solution for them.
All right. We have to leave it there. We're out of time. Thank you both.
You're welcome, Michael. Good to see you again. Good.
Now, here are a few responses to a recent story posted by CTV News. It's about Ottawa's decision to impose a 25% tariff on imported wood cabinets. Jason questions, all of our mills are closing and now you impose a 25% tariff? Rob counters with this, the point is to support Canadian content. Another Jason writes, when you see tariff, replace it with tax. Get it yet? Hadu Meu weighs in with, I don't care, paying more if it means more jobs in Canada. But Matthew thinks Ottawa needs to get those elbows up higher. Have your say. Email us anytime at comments@albertaprimetime.com. Coming up tomorrow, new polling suggests there is no obvious challenger among Conservative politicians to Prime Minister Mark Carney. Ahead of Nanos Research digs into the details on Wednesday. Until then, have a great evening, everyone, from all of us at Alberta Primetime. Thank you for watching, and join us again next time.